The year's finally underway. What can we expect returning to work this year? To discuss this more, we're joined by Rich Hirst. He is CEO of Tenfold. Now, these are an organisation which holds weekly CEO pods and masterclasses with around 200 of the largest multinationals and charities operating in Australia. Rich, good afternoon to you.
Grubby, how are you going?
Yeah, good, mate. Now, how have you found working with businesses the last few years?
Look, it's been extremely chaotic and a lot of uncertainty, but nothing that will surprise you. I think we're getting pretty good at rolling with the punches, aren't we?
Yeah, we kind of are. What do you think people are going to expect from their leaders in the workplace now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's been a real shift, and maybe it's just a reckoning, a bit of an opportunity to kind of reset leadership to where it should have always been, which is a much more of a focus on both performance and well-being. You know, companies have all really been tested to hit their numbers and all the rest, but suddenly everyone's going, well, what about me as an individual? So I think leaders are changing from being the coach, the performance coach, to also the counsellor and meeting people where they're at and supporting them on the journey.
Geez, that's interesting, Kate. Are you finding that in your workplace at the moment?
We have had a real focus on well-being in the pandemic. I feel it's hard. Journalism's relentless. So,
sure.
There's not a lot of opportunity to sort of take the foot off, I guess.
Yeah.
But we've been very conscious of the effect of it on everybody. Absolutely. It's been a real shift in thinking in that way. It's interesting to me how that, businesses, I guess, of all kinds will want at some point the shift to come back to productivity. And how do you manage that, I wonder?
Well, how do you manage, my question, Rich, is how do you manage people, convincing them to come back to the office? How's the sell on that going to go, do you reckon?
Well, I reckon it's not as hard as we think. I think after 2 years of isolation and lockdowns, especially in Victoria compared to the rest of the world, people are wanting that social connection. We're social beings. We want to be able to see people in 3D. And so I reckon for a lot of people that have been working remotely, they're actually super keen to come back. It's just a matter of how they come back and
do you reckon they're going to want to come back every day, though, Rich? Do you reckon?
No, that's the thing. That's the killer point there. That's the key point. They don't want to come back full time, and they want to have some control over how they come back and how often they're in the office. Yeah. And so I think that's the shift.
So people will say, all right, I'm not going to come in Friday, I'm not going to come in Monday, but you've got me Tuesday through Thursday as a regular thing. And do you think people are going to lock that in, or they're going to be flexible week by week? How do you think it's going to work?
Yeah, well, that's the conversation everyone's having. And, is it 3 days on, 2 days off? There's all these sort of tactical conversations going on. I think there's some key principles that override all of that, which is, will people feel safe coming into the office? And we've got to get that sort of the hygiene levels right, literally, first and foremost. And so a lot of companies that we're working with, they're putting in place things like, making sure, obviously, that RAT tests are available, which is a bit of a challenge at the moment, given supply levels.
Yes.
But, you want to make sure that the workplace is actually safer than anywhere else that they could be. And if you don't get that right to start with, well, then you kind of, all the bells and whistles on top of that some companies are providing, they're not going to be as relevant if people don't feel safe in the first instance.
Absolutely, Rich. And apparently there's increased discussion about companies allowing their employees to have a workcation, where workers will be allowed to work from a remote location other than home, like, not only at home, but out from home again. Now, is that a thing, or am I just making it up as I go along?
Look, there's so many buzzwords out there at the moment, aren't they? Workcations is one of the new ones. It might sound like a horrible idea to go, to work on holidays, but if you flip it and you think about it again, we're trying to give employees some sense of agency, some sense of control. And you've only got 4 weeks in a year to take holidays. So what if we could say, look, take 5 days off, go somewhere nice, but only 2.5 days will actually be debited from your annual leave, because we know you're going to work 4 hours a day, maybe between 7 and 11, and then the rest of the day you can just enjoy your time with family, friends, and so it's more around giving employees, again, the options and a sense of control after 2 years of things feeling a little bit out of control.
Geez, what happened to 9 to 5, 5 days a week, Kate? I mean,
Well,
it's
that's old school.
It's just shot.
Never know 9 to 5.
Yeah, you wouldn't have.
No.
I have. I have. I've come in at 9. I've left at 5.
Wow.
And that's been.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm going back a few years. Everybody else did too.
Yeah.
And your shop shut at midday on Saturday. That was the end of it.
Yeah.
Now you can go and have fun. But that's how
You
it
raise
was.
a great point, Grubby, because I think a lot of the conversation about the return to the office is about where we work. But there's a really important conversation to be had as well about when we work. So, for example, me, I'm an early starter. I'm at my most productive between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. So I leave my real value add work to then, and where I need to really focus or really try and create some value, that's where I'm at my best. And then anything after 1 p.m. is a bonus. And people will have different rhythms. And again, are we having that conversation as we get people to, because there's this huge opportunity, I mentioned I think the great reset before, and this idea that this experience, Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. Let's not look to go back to normal. That would be a horrible thing after 2 years of so much pain and anguish and grief and challenge and trial. Let's actually reset and think about how should we work, when should we work, where should we work, and the most important thing of all is why should we work. Yeah. And I think, again, there's this shift to a much stronger focus on purpose going forward and really connecting in, and this goes back to the well-being point that you were talking about before, Kate. The well-being piece, we know people, their well-being goes through the roof if they feel like they're doing something that really matters.
Yeah.
And invariably every business, every organisation, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit, is there to add value, there to make a difference. And I think, again, people have been a little bit removed from that when they've been working remotely and haven't felt quite as connected with the purpose behind the organisation. And there's a huge opportunity, again, to re-engage that this year and connect everybody in the business with
Bring back those gossip sessions on Friday night drinks and unnecessary behaviour, I say. Rich Hirst, CEO of Tenfold. It is fascinating times, and we're seeing silver linings all over the place. Thanks so much for talking to us on the Weekend Break today. It's been great. Good to meet you.
Thanks for the opportunity. All
Rich
the best.
Hirst, it's a fascinating topic, isn't it, Kate,
is,
going forward?
yeah.
And as he said, never waste a crisis.
I like that line.
I reckon that's a great line for today. Absolutely perfect. More of your calls after the break. I've got Kate Lay with me.